All right. Welcome to episode number 7 of the After Hours podcast. Here with me today, I have the co-founder and CEO of EPA, Andrew Cooley. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
This has been, I know we just sat down and talked like a month or so ago and did some things, but it's been a minute since, back then, since we saw each other every day, but it's good to see you on a slightly more regular basis now that we could talk a little bit. So I've been starting these off with what was your first encounter in esports? What kind of drew you to esports, and what made you I want to be involved more type thing?
So I grew up playing games my whole life. I always tell people that I started gaming when I was 3 or 4 years old. And I started on Doom, and people are like, your parents let you play Doom at 3 or 4? No, they didn't let me play Doom. I just happened to have played Doom, and then they found out years later. But I ended up, when I was about 12, I got into Counter-Strike. At the time, it was kind of transitioning from what was called 1.5 to 1.6.
Right.
And so, I loved playing the game. It was really exciting. It was one of my first multiplayer games online. And I remember sitting in what was called Ventrilo, which is the 1990s or early 2000s version of Discord. Mm-hmm. And so me and my friends were hanging out, and one of my buddies comes into the channel, and he's like, "Hey man, are you gonna watch the match?" And I'm like, what match? Like, what are you talking about? And I vividly remember it was this match. It was SK, who's obviously SK Gaming's still around. It was against this team called Eolithic, and I loved Eolithic. It was really cool to watch them. Plus, they were. It was just a grudge match, and so it was really exciting to watch. And I remember, actively watching this match, and whenever I got done, my jaw was actually hanging open, and I was just like, man, I would love to be able to be like a professional gamer or be in esports for the rest of my life. But and this was at the age of 12, and I was like, but there's no way you can make a feasible living off of that. So that's why I was a financial advisor for about 6 years. So. It's crazy how much the industry's grown, but that's kind of how I got started, is just watching that first match, and I fell in love with it instantaneously.
Yeah. So was Counter-Strike always kind of your baby?
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
When did you transition? Because I know you're pretty big into League. When did that kind of start up for you?
That was a long time. So I started off in Counter-Strike. I was, I guess, what you could consider like a semi-pro / pro. There was what was called CAL, so Cyber Athlete Amateur League, and I was Cal P / I. It was basically bordering on being a pro player. Transitioned to World of Warcraft and played that pro, and then Left 4 Dead, played that pro, and I was working on playing League of Legends professionally. And then, my at the time girlfriend, now wife, was kind of like, hey, I don't want to be married to a pro gamer. So ultimately, I transitioned to kind of coaching and management after that.
Yeah.
But it was in college. I guess it was probably around 2010, 2011 when I transitioned to playing League. So it was a ways away from whatever I started in esports for sure.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that she didn't want to be with a pro, but how many times did we go down to Java and she played Overwatch with us?
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, it was much different being
That's
a
true.
pro gamer back in the early days than it is today. And at the end of the day, she really didn't want me traveling all over the globe, and she was going to be stuck here basically, and I guess missing me. So
that's good. She likes you, which is important, I suppose.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So obviously one thing led to another, and you found yourself here, and you've always been in Texas, right?
Yeah.
This area specifically in Frisco?
In Dallas. Oh, wow. Well, so the Dallas DFW area, pretty much, yeah.
So how did it's been almost 2 years that I've known you. How did you exactly get involved with the whole Infinite project?
So back in college, and this was kind of a byproduct of the League of Legends thing, I really just wanted to start my own organization. Okay. So I created this organization called State of Mind Gaming.
I remember.
And so it never really got to take off, because ultimately I had to go use my degree, which was in financial planning. So I went and I was a financial advisor, and then ultimately, after I decided to leave that industry, I was like, well, I'm going to start State of Mind Gaming. I'm gonna make it Dallas's professional esports organization, and that was really my goal. That's what I wanted to do. And then people were like, no, you're crazy. They'll never have geographically recognized esports organizations.
Little did they know.
Yeah, exactly. Look at where we are now. So it's funny. I was just a little ahead of my time, I guess. But through networking, through all of that, I was doing a pitch event for State of Mind at some deal with Code Authority. It's called Code Launch, which I think that we actually both, or at least Josh was there.
It was Josh, yeah.
Yeah, Josh was there for that in that first year. But I was there for that. It was the year before everything kind of got going, and I, through all this networking, met Chris, and Chris and I talked for, I guess, about a year before Infinite started.
Yeah.
And we kept in touch and whatnot. And ultimately, he liked what I was doing. He liked my passion for the industry and for developing players and talent and whatnot. So he brought me on, and that's kind of how that came about.
So what was your original role with Infinite?
I think the original role was the director of MOBAs at GGE Sports Academy.
And obviously,
what actually happened?
No. Obviously, a lot of things were very different because from what I remember, the initial Infinite idea was far different from what happened. Just because a lot of great things happened, a lot of road bumps and whatever happened. But and then you ended up transitioning over to the head coach of the.
Yeah,
Academy team?
Of the Optic League of Legends Academy team. The way that kind of came about is they had asked me to basically vet out coaches for the position, and obviously doing what I do, I have some pretty high standards for coaching. And I couldn't really find anybody. I interviewed a lot of people, and there's nobody that really met my mark or met the standards for it. And so ultimately they were like, well, you go do it then.
Yeah.
So I ended up coaching for the spring split, and then they transitioned the team out to LA, and that's kind of whenever I went back to GGEA full time.
Right. How did you? Was it your first time like actually coaching a team like in a physical environment versus like over? Have you coached before?
Yeah. I've coached for a number of years before that, and I've coached individual players and whatnot. But getting the opportunity to kind of coach a full team at the professional level, it just felt normal. But I mean that was the first time getting to actually do that, so it was good.
Did you enjoy it? Would you do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. I think I calculated at one point, and I think for about 3 months straight, I worked about 18 hours a day, and I didn't even feel like everybody, Brian Yale and everybody else, they were like, hey, you need to slow down, like you need to take a break, you're gonna get burned out. And I was like, I don't even feel burned out. Like I actually love this, and so I'd do it again in a heartbeat, and that's why we're working on what we're working on, because I love it.
Yeah. So as time went on, there were shuffles that happened over with GGA, and you ended up ultimately taking over the reins of that for a little bit. For a little while. It was more than a little bit. It was. I think
they made me president in April. And then it was from April till whenever everything happened.
Yeah. So what was your like thought process with coming into that and everything that happened and bringing GGA to? Was your goal to kind of re-guide the brand or the company, or was it to kind of bring it to where it was originally intended on going?
So first I had to wrap my head around what all was going on, because I knew specifically, what I wanted to do with the League of Legends side of things. Yeah. And so I kind of had to figure out, okay, well, what's happening with Call of Duty, what's happening with Overwatch, what's happening with the FGC and whatnot, to be able to then formulate, okay, this is where I want to take it. Ultimately, I would love to have had everything set up and done the way that we were able to execute the League of Legends team, because we got to do that to a T, utilize my infrastructure, utilize everything, and it got set up really well. Yeah. There were some things that, obviously we ultimately had to do away with the Call of Duty side of things. And then as far as kind of the Overwatch team, I'll be kind of blunt. I saw a lot of articles after everything that happened, And I was like, when did all of this happen? And then
Yeah.
I think it all transpired kind of right before I got to take over and whatnot. And I would have loved to have gotten to set that program up properly, because I feel like, unfortunately, that wasn't as much of a positive impact on the players and staff there as it could have been, had it been set up properly. So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a lot of things, not just at the GGA level, like a lot of things could have been done better. A lot of things were done really well too at the same time. Like
Sure.
there was a lot. It was a fun time. Definitely a fun time. I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like I do say this in at least half of the podcast so far.
Yeah.
The Infinite project as a whole was probably the best. Like, maybe not like professionally or anything. Well, I mean, it definitely helped professionally, but socially, like one of the best, like
Yeah.
fun amount of time I've had, like with so many people, because there was like obviously a lot of people there, and I made really good friends. And there's a lot of people that I'm sure, me and these Josh and Mitch too probably will be friends with for a really long time, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the, I guess transitioning from GGA under Andrew Cooley into what you're working on now. So like, what is the concept of that? Is that, a repurposed version of GGA, a subsection of like a revisit, or is it entirely different?
I haven't really thought of. What I would say is that, whenever I took over GGEA, that we learned a lot of lessons in a small amount of time. So
Right.
in the 6 months or whatever it was, we learned a lot about what was effective, what wasn't effective. Ultimately, I think we ended up sending about 12 players and one coach into the pro scene. So obviously there were a lot of things that were effective, but kind of from an economics and a cost standpoint, we got to figure some things out too. And so I think that it's an improved version of GGEA for sure, and it really is focused on true player development for the entire country.
So it's less, stop me if I getting into it too much, but if is it, so it's less of putting a team together and sending a team to an event versus bringing a player in and working with that player individually?
Yeah, I don't want to go by the model, where you're pouring a bunch of resources into these. Maybe you win the tournament and then the economics work out. Maybe you don't. It's more of kind of developing a path to pro, not to steal the contenders motto or whatever it may be, but it really is, at the high school level, at the middle school level, and then obviously the people who are just on the cusp of going pro. We would do very similarly what we did with GGA, where we have one team for each respective popular title that we do contract, we do develop in-house, we fly them out here, and then we basically provide them with the infrastructure that a pro player gets, and then utilize our relationships to help them get into the pro scene if it's a good fit for the team.
Cool. I mean, it sounds good to me. Definitely, it works. I mean, sounds like it'll work.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not the guy behind the scenes of it, so I don't know. Cool. So without getting too much into that, on to the next thing. So the past couple years, we've seen a lot of things like franchising, and we got into it a little bit earlier, like regionalization and fans and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on both franchising and on region-based teams, or city-based teams, I guess?
I think, I'll tackle the city-based teams. Obviously, I'm a big advocate because I was trying to do it myself at one point. So, no, I think it's fantastic. Growing up, I would have loved to have been able to go to major esports matches and have a team to actually represent, and cheer for, a Dallas team for esports. That would have been awesome. But obviously, it's a work in progress. So it's great that everybody will have that opportunity soon enough and currently. As far as kind of the franchising, I know there's pros and cons to it. Let's see, obviously the Overwatch League, they're kind of international across the globe and whatnot with their franchising teams. And then in League of Legends, North America and Europe have done it, but Asia hasn't necessarily done it yet. Right. So I think that there's definitely pros and cons of each, but from an investor standpoint, I think that was always the biggest concern of dumping money into these organizations is, is, are you going to get knocked out or what? And so adding the franchising factor does add a lot of stability to them being included in the league. So that adds the interest from the investor standpoint, which, what was it the other day? 35 million got poured into 100 Thieves.
Yeah,
So,
so,
you are seeing a lot more backing, which I think is good for the industry.
Yeah.
As long as everybody does what they're supposed to do on their end and is prudent with the money, then it helps the industry grow. And I think that it's definitely a positive.
Yeah. A lot of people, you see in a lot of places that people think that the esports industry is just a bubble waiting to be popped.
Sure.
And I don't know. I don't think it'll ever get to the. I guess anything could happen, but it'd be interesting to see someone just put in too much money, or too many people put in too much money and just kind of implodes. I don't know. I don't think it would ever get there.
I don't think that there's a bubble that's going. I mean, maybe it pops, but that doesn't mean that the industry's done. The industry will continue to go.
That's true.
And I had a conversation with somebody the other day, one of my colleagues, and he said, I was talking to one of my friends, and he thinks that everybody's already missed the boat on investing in esports. And I laughed hysterically. And he was like, well, I had a conversation with somebody else who knows esports really well, like yourself. So he told me that that's just not the case. And I said, yeah, exactly. Just because maybe all these pro teams have gotten all the investment that they need at this point, and I don't think that all of them have. I think that there are plenty of pro teams that could probably use some more if they handle it correctly and whatnot. But there's so much other infrastructure in esports that still has not been invested in, and there's technologies, there's service-based things like what we're doing, and so I think that it's far from being over and on the investment side of things for sure.
Yeah, I think as big money started to come in, obviously the big untouchable size organizations that started to get money in the eyes of the people who are trying to invest, like they see these big 20, 30, 40, however many millions of dollars going into these organizations, and they that person probably think, I can't come up with that kind of money.
Sure.
Obviously they're not going to invest, but there is so much opportunity in esports. Like obviously we got involved super early. Most people who are around right now got involved very, very early, and while being the early mover is good, doing it right is also important.
Right.
So obviously Sector 6 was not the first company to do esports jerseys, but we've been around and we kind of know our stuff and we're doing okay. But I don't know. There's definitely just so much opportunity here, and I wish more people would take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So, what else do we got here? So, I guess back into your original history, Counter-Strike into World of Warcraft into
Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead. I didn't even know there was first of all, Left 4 Dead professional scene.
It was very brief because Left 4 Dead 2 basically killed the pro scene because they changed the physics of the game and it just destroyed it.
I do remember playing Left 4 Dead and then playing Left 4 Dead 2 and then disliking it. I guess it could have been the physics, but I was also very, very much less of a observant gamer, I guess, back then. It was kind of just like point and shoot games only, and I would just kill the things. So I don't remember when that came out, Left 4 Dead 2. When did that come out?
Oh, man.
Making my day.
2008, 2000. Here, I can pull out my phone and look it up. Let's see.
Alex. Is that the guy's name? Adam? And Joe Rogan's podcast? I'm going to get
I don't know.
made fun of by Mitch. I'm
let's see. Left 4 Dead 2 came out in 2009.
2009. No, not that long ago. But 2009,
It was a decade ago.
Oh, that's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm perpetually in 2012 and anything, because that's when I graduated high school. So I just feel like, but 10 years ago I was 15, so I guess I was a youngin'. I don't know. So then Left 4 Dead into League of Legends. So like what did your early were you a first mover in League? Like when that first came out, were you like, season 1 playing?
Yeah, so I think it was season 1. I think I started right after season 1 maybe. The way that happened is I just had a friend in my class, and one of my classes at Texas Tech, and he was like, "Hey man, you should start playing this game. Have you checked this out?" And I was like, no. And I was looking at maybe just going back to World of Warcraft and whatnot. And I decided to install it and try it out. And I played, the original Dota on Warcraft 3 a little bit. By no means was fantastic at it. And then I played Heroes of New Earth in like the beta. And so I was very familiar with the MOBA genre and whatnot, but I ended up trying it out and I loved it.
Yeah.
I was very addicted to it the moment I started playing it.
Yeah.
And I just ended up being a jungler because that's what my team needed. And
Right.
they were like, yeah, we just need a jungler for our team. Then we can start playing, together and doing cool matches and whatnot. So I've just never stopped being a jungler since I started playing just because that's what they needed. But I loved it from the moment I started playing it. And then, from there, I always am driven by obviously myself and wanting to do well. But I had one of my friend's friends, and he was a really cocky kid, and he was like, I made some misplay within the first few weeks of playing, and I did really poorly, and I was really embarrassed. So my friend starts kind of poking fun of me and jabbing me, and I was like, yeah, whatever, man. I'll be better than you in a month. And so he was like, no, you won't. And I just him saying no, you won't just lit the fire under me, and I was just like, okay, I'm literally just gonna practice like I'm going pro for this, and I sure enough was quite better than him within a month's time.
And that was the moment you made Iron 4, right?
The Iron didn't even exist back then. No. That didn't even exist back then for me to make Iron 4.
That's true. When did that come around? Were they?
That was this last year.
Really?
It was whenever they. So bronze was around back then. But
okay.
I always heckle the other Andrew English, my business partner, because he is a grandmaster player. He's very highly ranked, and he always tells me, he started out in silver, and I was like, I've never been silver, man. I only ever started out in gold when I played ranked, but obviously he ended up much higher than I did. So it's hard. Maybe that was the trick. I missed being silver, and I didn't learn something from that.
I'm over here. I've been silver for forever. Actually, no. I was silver the first time I played ranked. I went through my promos, made silver, and then I've been whatever's the one below that. Bronze? Iron?
I think iron's the lowest now.
Okay, so I have bronze. I'm definitely not the lowest. I suck at League. I mean, we've played...
No, you're excellent.
You don't need to gas me up. I know. We played whatever... I forgot how it broke down, but it was like 3-on-3 or whatever we played at Java, I remember, and it was bad. I don't know.
Speaking of which, I did find a Counter-Strike clip the other day.
Oh no.
And I meant to put it out on Twitter and tag you guys, but it was from when you, me, Nabil, Jason, and Josh, y'all were like heckling me to play Counter-Strike, and I hadn't played in like a decade or more. And I had that really cool op play where I ended up getting like a quad, I think, or something like that. And I was just cleaning out computer files. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to send this. So maybe I'll put that on Twitter for you guys to see. But
that'd be cool.
it was good time. Good time back then.
We got to do that. Fortunately, I think we just missed Jason. He came down for 10 days or something. I saw that. But we got to just, on a more consistent basis, do things like that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun. Because I honestly, I haven't played Overwatch since we were down there playing Overwatch. I think I probably played it a couple times since, but I haven't played any video games. I don't know. I don't know. Do you have time to play games between what you're doing?
So that's the thing is that I always joke about is that once you start working in the industry,
Exactly.
You don't have as much time to actually personally participate. But at the same time, given the area that we focus in, it's good for me to play because it actually helps with perspective and strategy and coaching and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I try not to, whenever I do play, I try to actually be very intentional with it, just like we coach our players to be, I try to be very intentional and deliberate and to learn things so that it actually is beneficial. But yes, I do. Whenever I do have some free time, I will definitely play casually to mentally and psychologically decompress because I love it.
Yeah, same. I mean, I just wish I had the damn time.
Yeah.
It sucks. Like, I'd be lucky if I made Josh bring his PlayStation in. I didn't make him. We just talked about it. And I bothered him 2 days ago to bring it in. So, but I don't know. I feel like video games for me has always been an escapism. Like you turn your brain off for a little bit and you can just kind of do whatever you want virtually.
Yeah.
And then you come back into whatever misery you have to deal with.
Well, I told Jen the other day. I hadn't really been doing anything competitively lately.
Yeah.
We're obviously, with what we're doing, we're just so focused on grinding to get everything up and running and whatnot that for the past couple of months, I haven't done anything competitively. And that's probably the longest stint of not playing anything competitively in games since I was 12, since I started.
Damn.
And I was going through this funk and I was like, what is wrong with me? And I wasn't feeling the best. I wasn't as upbeat. And I love competing like that much that it actually is like, it really does, I guess, affect me. And it means that much to me to be able to have that thrill, that adrenaline rush, that competition, that drive to really perform. And so even if it is, just trying to get a ranked game in on Apex or on League or whatever it may be, apparently that does matter that much to me that I need to periodically do that. Otherwise, I'm just kind of
Yeah, I respect it. I mean, I was never very in. I mean, I've always loved watching the competitive scene, and I've always tried to be involved with it. But I never. This sounds really crappy for someone who claims to be in esports, but like I never really had the drive to become better than the next person for esports. I always wanted to be good, but I never wanted to put in the time. I feel like that's very cliche.
No,
unsuccessful person, but
there are top ranking players that obviously that I've worked with that they're like, yeah, I want to go pro, but then whenever it comes time to put up or shut up and put the work in, they don't want to put the work in. So I completely understand. But on that note, again, going back to conversations I've had with Andrew, he's like, yeah, we could just go play for fun or something like that. I'm like, play for what? He's like, fun, the three letter word, just casually. And I was like, I don't know how to play games for fun. Like I only know how to compete in games, and I always want to win.
I'm trying to think of a game that you could kind of play without being like a single player thing, like a RPG.
No, I will always try to think of. I'll try to beat myself. I'll always try to think of what's the fastest, what's the most efficient. Yeah, what's the easiest way to win and whatnot. So I'm
funny.
Always in that mindset.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So what are your thoughts on TFT? Have you played that at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, or is that like a
sarcastic a little bit? Yeah. Well,
I haven't slept in 4 days.
No. I've played it. They just released a massive patch today, and the massive patch broke regular League of Legends. There's like all these champions that just don't even work at all.
Oh my goodness.
It's pretty bad. They've had to disable some, and I think disable ranked entirely. But
holy moly.
They made a bunch of updates to TFT. I think they're headed in the right direction and that they care about the game a lot. The frustrating thing to me is kind of the itemization is very imbalanced.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, this guy just got, 3 items at the start of the game, and I got 1 or 0. Well, who do you think is going to win that, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously it can balance out in the later portions of the game. Maybe he gets 0, maybe you get 3, whatever. But there are definitely some inconsistencies. And so what they toyed with is it's like, well, if you get no items, you get some gold. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, so I get like maybe a level up or a couple of rerolls, and this guy still gets an item. Like, I'm sorry, I still don't think that that's balanced. So I think that my biggest qualm with the entire thing is just balancing the itemization aspect. But outside of that, I think that they are headed in the right direction, and they are actively paying attention and listening to the community. To be able to do that. So it's definitely a cool genre and definitely something new and different.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously what is the title called? What are we calling it? This is Auto Chess?
Auto Chess?
Yeah. So I had seen it come up in Dota, and everybody was like this big craze, and everybody was like, oh, Auto Chess is so cool. And as somebody who doesn't know anything about Dota, like I know nothing about League, but I know even less about Dota.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. I go in there and I'm like, this guy's going over there, like they're fighting, and it's like a chessboard with movable things. I don't get it. So I couldn't wrap my head around it. But when TFT came out, I started watching it. I'm like, okay, I know what Misfortune does. She's got that ult that does that thing. So like it starts to make sense to me. And I think the auto chess genre is really cool. I wonder if it would branch out into anything that's not MOBA. I'd like to see like I don't even know. Like Overwatch could make a
Overwatch could definitely
not the but not that now I'm gonna sound like I'm leaking something. But not that needs to be the next thing, but I think that'd be pretty cool.
I mean, they could do because I mean they had Heroes of the Storm, and then
That's true.
Blizzard pulled the plug on the pro scene.
Yeah.
But I mean that would be cool because they have all they have Diablo, they have World of Warcraft, they have StarCraft. You can go take all the heroes from that, and they can do Blizzard auto chess. I'd be a fan of that.
Is that not? Is Dota not Blizzard owned IP?
No, Dota's Valve.
I'm gonna leave now.
They fought that battle in court because technically Dota was obviously on Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
And I think that they wanted to be able to call Heroes of the Storm Dota 2 legally, but they lost the court case obviously. So that at least I think that's how that went down. Yeah, unfortunate. Yeah, but I think they're still doing okay, so I wouldn't worry too much about them.
I think my only wish for Teamfight Tactics is they put it on mobile. Once they get their stuff sorted and they put it, because I played Dota Underlords, is that what it's called? I played it because I started to understand auto chess, and I was like, I'll try it. Yeah, and it's like fun, and I just don't ever have the time to turn my PC on.
No, I completely agree, and I'm sure they will expand to mobile in time. Cool. I tried to play that on a tablet on a Surface Pro because I had to leave town for a few days, and I was like, well, I don't have a laptop, so I'll just use my Surface Pro.
Yeah.
It is not fun to try and play that game to be able to navigate like the carousel with like a little touchpad.
Is it like a touchpad, like a laptop? Oh no.
It was not the funnest thing in the world. I think I still got like second place though, so I was happy with that, but yeah, it still wasn't the best.
Damn. Was it only 2 people who queued up?
No.
Damn. Yeah. I mean, definitely be interesting. But like mobile gaming has come out of, well, I feel like it was really hot this time last year. And I feel like there just hasn't been too much going into it to bring it up.
Yeah.
But I think mobile gaming will be much bigger. It'll continue to grow. Yeah. I'd like to see, I don't know. I'd like a new type of game to come out on mobile. I don't know. Maybe I'll make that game. I don't know what it'll be. I have no idea. Maybe it'll be auto chess.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll make mobile gaming really cool, but I don't know. Cool. That's gaming. That's how it is. So I guess we can kind of wrap up a little bit here. What is your end goal in esports? Not that this is wrapping up, I guess, because this might trigger something. But
sure.
Like, what is your end goal in esports? Like, whether this current works or this is your end goal. Like, what is that for you?
I think my end goal, at least, I wouldn't say in esports because to be honest, like I don't know what the next 10 or 20 years holds. I know what. I kind of have a goal right now, and I know that once I complete that goal, or at least I feel like that's 90% completed, then I'll probably be like, okay, what else can I do in esports? I've loved the industry my whole life, and so all I want to do is try to help build the industry up further to make it successful and make it long-lasting so that, generations to come can appreciate it and love it and participate in it. So the way that we're doing that right now is trying to create a player development path so that be it at middle school, high school, collegiate, or even pro and semi-pro and whatnot, we can kind of work together to raise the standards for North American players. Yeah. And that's really what my goal is right now. Again, once we feel like that mission's complete and whatnot, then we can look at what else we can do in esports. Yeah. But that's really my primary focus, is just focusing on player development.
Do you have personal goals outside of esports?
Do I have personal goals outside of esports? Own an Aston Martin V12 Vantage.
Now that is a pretty good goal to have.
That has been a lifelong goal of mine. That is my favorite car. So hopefully someday I can check that one off my bucket list. But that and go to Tahiti. Those are my personal goals.
Let's do it. I'm down. You going to Tahiti? Jen, are you coming?
Now I gotta make sure she listens to this. No, I mean obviously those are those aren't the biggest goals in the world. They're just what's the terminology? It's just physical wants and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's good because you might be in a decent mindset because you're kind of chasing what you already want type thing versus chasing an unachievable goal.
Yeah. But. No, I mean, I think that outside of, assets and things of that nature, whatever it may be, just to have an impact on the industry. That really is like whenever you talk about a personal goal, esports has been over half my life. And so the funny thing is people are like, oh yeah, you're an entrepreneur. And no, I just love esports. Maybe I am an entrepreneur and I'm in denial. I don't know, but realistically, I love this industry, and I love, being able to participate in it now, especially because I refused to go to LA for so long that it's hindered my career for so long that I'm thankful now that that esports is in Dallas especially. And I think that it'll only continue to grow, across the world in the years to come, obviously. So I'm thankful that, we get to be a part of it.
Yeah. Same here. Definitely a really good place to be, especially if you enjoy esports as a whole. The industry is a very, very loving and sometimes not so loving, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
I definitely love it. Cool. Outside of that, you got anything you wanted to get off your chest, say, or anything like that?
It's a loaded question, man.
It's loaded, 100%. No, for real, like, anything you didn't cover, any plugging you want to do?
I'd say we'll have our website up and running soon.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's listening, they can stay tuned to see that. We'll have some cool announcements in the coming months after that. So we have a lot of exciting stuff going on. Just can't obviously talk about all of it just yet, but I appreciate you having me on. And I am thankful for the opportunity to get to talk with you today.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Obviously, I'm cool guy and I need cool people to talk to, and now we're here. So what's your Twitter?
My Twitter?
You don't use it, but it's,
I don't use it, but it's just Veritas.
That's right, just Veritas. I don't know why I thought it was something else. I don't know what I'm thinking.
I did change it a couple of times.
That's true, you did. That or find him on LinkedIn. His name is spelt in the title of the podcast. But yeah. Until the next episode, thanks for listening. Make sure to leave a like or follow or subscribe or whatever option you have on the platform you're listening to, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.